Okay, we are live. Welcome back, guys. If you are joining again from yesterday or today, you know that I am Heather Hubbard and I am filling in for Amber Vilhauer. Now, if you're just now joining, you might be wondering, where is Amber? Well, our fearless leader is leading Author Up Live. She had a live event, but as you know, that had to get canceled. She's doing it virtually, but that did not stop her from putting together this series and this program because she knew that having these live streams would help everyone out. And so many amazing people have stepped up and offered their support to bring you wisdom. And so I'm happy and honored to step in her shoes. And we have two amazing guests for you on our panel this afternoon. So we have Darren Vasami and we also have Hal Runkel. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us for the Elevate series this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us and filling in.
Yeah, happy to do so. So here's what I'm thinking. Let's start with some brief introductions. Now, a lot of people may know you guys, but some may not. So if you just want to share who you are, what you do, and where people can find you.
Okay, I'm Hal Runkel, and what I do is I support leaders. I've written a couple of best-selling books, and I'm a coach and a speaker. And my website is new website is in development by Amber's team, and it's supposedly going live maybe as we speak. So
That's exciting.
Yeah, so it might be halrunkel.com, or the best place is just to find me on Facebook.
All right. My name's Darren Vasami. I'm the co-founder of a company called 34 Strong. We use a strengths-based approach to human development, and we really focus on helping to create great places to work. So that's a big part of the work that we do. I'm also an upcoming TEDx speaker, so I'll be speaking at an event here in Roseville, California in July.
Sweet.
Yeah, best place to find me is at 34strong.com. So that's a big part of where you can find me and the work that we do.
Awesome. All right, well, let's just start with how you guys are feeling, just what's going on in your world and what you're seeing with your clients, your communities.
You go first, Darren.
All right. So for me, I think it's fair to say we're all certainly uncertain right now, right? There's a lot of uncertainty that has been going on in the world, in many of our businesses. And I've been feeling that, definitely. Part of that I have really taken to heart and that I found for myself personally in times of uncertainty, it's actually a great time to go deep back to your roots and do a lot of work on self. I've just been really, really intentional about making sure that my morning routines get up very, very early, and I'm protecting that quiet time to just, do whatever it might be, exercise a little bit, meditate, just breathe and pause, and just see that, hey, you know what? The moon's still in the sky. The sun hasn't fallen out of the sky yet. Those are little anchors in our everyday life that actually do provide a little bit of certainty and that can give us a little bit of injections of hope. So that's been huge for me to protect that, because as we step into the day, it seems like the tides are changing every couple minutes. Yeah. On the client, go ahead, Hal, and then I'll answer the client
about
question.
that. Yeah, my wife and I are just talking about how it seems like time has never crawled by this slowly every day, and I think it's because of the uncertainty. We don't know from 1 hour to the next what huge change is going to be. We're waiting in Atlanta for the mayor probably announced today that we're on lockdown, but we don't know. And with that uncertainty, it just seems like everything is so slow.
Yeah, it's very much been that way. I'm out in California and we've been on full lockdown for a while. So it's been just quite a bit of adapting to go to. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old that we are now learning how to homeschool as well. Jeez. So it's running the business, keeping things afloat. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Many others are dealing with that. You asked the question about the client side, Heather. A lot of our clients, we do work with small businesses. We do work with medium-sized businesses as well. And then we actually do a lot, because we're based in Sacramento, California. a capital city, we do a lot of work with the government as well, with the state, which is cool. But at the same time, some of our government clients are in a heavy, we need you, but we need to call timeout because they've had major restructuring of who's essential, who's not essential. New teams are being formed. So we're minding this gap of how do we get across to the other side? And that uncertainty has definitely been challenging. We've had to make some massive changes in our business for the short term, even though the long term looks very, very promising for us. So it's that stomach for right now.
Yes, I definitely want to come back to that. We are definitely going to have that conversation.
And certainly
What's going
that's
on in your world.
Yeah, it is. That's been the case with my clients. I have a lot of business owners as clients, and the way I'm just making myself as available as possible. And it's just, I found myself on Zoom like 35 hours last week talking to folks because they're saying, all right, well, yesterday I cut salaries 20%. And tomorrow I'm going to have to tell them, no, it's going to be 30%. And I'm hoping not again. And how do I come across as a leader, as decisive about the things I do know? And what do I say about the things I don't? And how do I, and it's just, these are conversations. A restaurant owner in Nashville who's cutting his staff from 350 to 30. And I'm hearing those stories again and again. Right before this call, my daughter, who lives in Nashville, she's in her first job working for a startup. She just graduated college last year, and she just got laid off. And we were anticipating it coming, but that's spreading out. And so small business owners are really, really struggling. And the biggest thing is, how do I have a conversation with people, that the people that are staying on, that they feel some sense of assurance in this completely unsure world? Unsure. And it's coaching them. What I've found best, what each of them have told me has worked best, is saying, look, in so much uncertainty, like you were talking about, Darren, here's what I do know is this team is amazing. I wouldn't want to be making these decisions with anybody other than these people in this room. And trying to concentrate on that is it's just a really, really obviously unprecedented challenge. As for us personally, my wife and I have gotten really used to being empty nesters. And yet here's our 20-year-old son who just came back because college kicked him out off the campus. So we're adjusting to the presence of another grown human.
Yes. Yes. And I'm here in Nashville.
Oh, okay. Hey.
So, is your daughter, is she going to stay here in Nashville?
Yeah, she wants to.
Yeah.
Very much so. She's got a lease and roommates and a boyfriend who also got fired. He's an executive chef. And it's like you said, Darren, it's minding the gap, because he knows who he's going to get. He's a really successful chef. He's going to get nabbed up as soon as it. And she has, I have no doubts about her getting a job. But it's, what do we do between then and now and then?
Right. Right. So I'm curious to hear, Darren, what you are doing right now. I mean, right, we're all pivoting. And
Yes.
I'm curious to hear, and I agree. I think that there is going to be a boom. There is going, right, like this too shall pass, but we're all in it together right now. And so I'm curious to hear how things are shifting for you in the business and how you are pivoting and how you're dealing with it, at least today, because we know sometimes this changes day by day, hour by hour.
I think Hal brought up some really, really important struggles that a lot of small businesses are facing, that deliberation process. When he mentioned that many of the clients that you're coaching, Hal, they're going back, we cut salaries 20% today, then we're going back tomorrow, cutting 25%, 30%.
Yeah.
Coming back to that whole point of this too shall pass, we were slower to act last week because we wanted to give ourselves a week and give our team some level of stability during that week, looking ahead at where we were at financially, how we were doing, and knowing fully well that things were shaking out and changing by the hour. And the anchor that we created was thinking about the certainty that we plan to have on the other side of this. So when we get across the gap, what does this look like? So if our plan is to have this same team intact showing up brighter and stronger than they've been at right now, we had to be really, really intentional about the messaging and the signaling that was coming to them now. And what we ended up going through was we did have to make some changes with staffing. We had to make some adjustments, and going through that, we ended up intentionally in cutting business expenses as well, and having to make some adjustments with staff. We cut deeper probably than we needed to, with the intention of and longer than we needed to, communicating them that it's going to be longer, but with the intention of, hey, we're going to start bringing you guys back in parts and pieces, or bringing your hours back and elevating those back up sooner. Because listen, if you tell them you're cutting them by 25% or 30%, or if you tell them you're cutting them by 60%, or you're telling them you're laying them off, it sucks all the same.
It does.
Now, the whole thing is, if we message on that side, and then within a week or two, things have turned. Sure. And even if you're a team of 10 or 15 and one person's starting to come back, they're starting to see the light. You're giving them hope and certainty in a time of massive uncertainty. Yeah. And that was a big part of what's framed our decision making. And we've gone back and forth and even lost track of our own thoughts as a leadership team. Our heads are spinning. Decision making fatigue is setting in while trying to do this and, keep track of kids doing homework and not, burning the house down as we're going along too, which is what people are focusing on. But that has been part of our strategy in going towards, because it's getting the business to the point of where it's protected enough to keep the boat kind of floating along, even if we're taking deeper cuts now. And the one question I'll leave with is simply this. We asked this in ourselves from a decision-making standpoint, which was, 2 years from now, do we want to be having the conversation of remember 34 strong? Remember when we had that company? Or do we want to be having the conversation of remember when we faced all the challenges of March into first quarter of 2020, and we made some really hard decisions. We made some sacrifices as a team, and here we are today, shining brighter and stronger than ever before. Those were the two different paths that helped guide how we were moving forward with our decision making.
Begin with the end in mind.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right. And I really like that you guys did not want to have to go back and deliver bad news again. I really like that process. And it obviously required some patience on you guys' part, because everybody was wanting to hear, what's going to happen. Are they going to lower the boom in some way? But you just didn't want to overpromise.
It was a function of overpromising. And then when we started looking at things, it was a function of what will be the best, not only for the company, but for the individuals. And making those changes was actually better for them than stringing them along and potentially putting a complete torpedo on the side of the boat that could be unrecoverable. And that just wasn't good for anybody.
What do those conversations look like for you? Like when you're talking to people, business owners trying to make these decisions, is it similar?
Sure. Yes, it is. It is similar. But it's very industry specific.
Yeah.
One of my clients is a high-level manager, just got transferred to Nashville to Opryland Hotel, which you're familiar with. Yeah. And of course, just moved into his apartment and got furloughed 2 weeks later. Just moved, left here I'm in Atlanta, just moved up there. And that's happening again and again and again. And then business owners, hey, we did this and we didn't plan as well, And so one of my business owners did and said, hey, you know what? We actually we were able to bring somebody back. It was a restaurant that we were surprised by the takeout business. And it's a restaurant you probably know well, Heather. So they're trying to scramble. But the biggest thing is, I'm getting more and more, I've shifted my business towards men. And for whatever reason, I was a therapist for a long time, and that's usually more women, but I'm developing a heart for working with men. My wife's a coach as well, and she's working more with women now. And I'm just outpouring of emotion that they are not used to experiencing, but it's just so difficult. And the stress is something none of us have ever had to experience. And one of the things I talk about is what you mentioned, Darren, is the home life is threatened by the togetherness. It's too much togetherness is I think as dangerous as too much separation from family members. And you're smiling because you've already been feeling it, and how do we, if we can't get along, if we can never get alone, so we've got to build ways, even in tiny apartments, to take turns walking the dog, which is only allowed, in lockdown situations, but figuring out ways to allow people to have space. Not everybody in the family has to play the board game all at once, and not everybody, you don't have to have all these. Yes, it's all together. That is a terrible recipe, and it's not the time to be really scrutinizing your kids' screen time, because we're all going to be on screens more than ever. And so I'm thinking about, because I coach the whole leader, and so I'm hearing stories from every aspect, every kind of room of their lives, boardroom and yeah, even the bedroom. So it's interesting.
Well, so a lot of my clients, their kids are at home now.
Yeah.
They're with their spouses. And so a few things have come up. One, I've had companies where we're taking things that were in person and now we're moving them to virtual. But even trying to do that, even as we're trying to pass off kids between spouses, I can only get like 2 to 3 hours of like really productive time.
Yep.
And then I have others who are saying, we're trying to create schedules, but that's even having to change on a daily basis because there's some calls that I'm having that like I can't be interrupted. And it just seems like there is just this new layer of stress where everyone's trying to, right, like find what the new normal is. Do either one of you have recommendations on that, on how you're navigating it, or, recommendations on just how to have those anchors, how to manage it all throughout the day?
Sure. I liked what Darren was saying about finding anchors where you can, and certainly routine can be helpful, but also he talked about getting up early, so he does have some alone time that's going to be crucial. I found one business owner who's saying, you know what, we're actually really getting productive in this separateness, and we may not go back, which is, I think it's going to happen in a lot of places where I don't have to pay rent on this 20,000 square foot building if we're all able to connect so well via Zoom, which is interesting. I just think, you mentioned, Heather, I can't be interrupted. And that's something I think we're going to eventually relax, because we're on day 8 or whatever, and there could be day 48. We just do not know. And remember the famous video of the guy doing the interview and his kid came in the back, and then the nanny came and got. I think we're just going to have to appreciate that that's going to happen to all of us, especially those of you with kids. Yeah, having toddlers and teenagers was tough enough, but having them, if you have them right now, good Lord. Good luck.
Yeah. I've had a few, thankfully none have happened, knock on wood yet, during any Facebook Lives or any interviews like we're on here. But if my little guy comes in, I might just pull him in and have him say hi. But he knows exactly, to stay out. Man. There's a sign that the kids, it's so funny. I've actually, to that point, I've had them actually help and involving in the process. So my daughter, she loves to be a doer, loves to be a helper. And we've known that. So, I work in the space of playing to your strengths, developing your kids to their strengths, developing your organizations around people's natural talents. My daughter, she's a natural organizer, right? So one of the things that she knows that I've been working in here and kind of away in my office cave. So she actually asked how she could help. She made a sign for the door, and they both have known, like, if that door is closed, like, Dad's on an important call, and I'll usually leave it, closed or partially open. But then I'm like, just come in whenever. I know I'm going to get disrupted. I do best when I'm really razor focused into what it is I'm doing. But it's just accepting that's not going to be the case. Because the last thing I think I want to do right now, and I think it's important for all of us to be mindful of, everybody's in the same boat. We all want that razor focus on our work. But do we really want to be in a place where this is becoming a season where we're pushing our kids and our family away, where they're the ones that are paying the ultimate tax for this? Those relationships are going through that. So if we're not intentional about this is an absolute 100%, don't come in right now, versus, come in and kick Dad's door down and tell me about what your sister did. Right. That's going to completely end the world in the next 10 minutes, which happened just a few minutes ago. I got on this call, right? If we don't allow for those moments to happen, we can actually run the risk of pushing our kids away, our families away. But protecting that alone time, I think that is huge. What you just said there, Hal, on the alone versus the getting along.
And what I love, also think about that. You've talked really well, Darren, about what's going to happen after it's over, and there's going to be a rush of activity, and we're not going to be as available to our family members then. So it's a great time to take advantage of it. Here's one of my hard and fast rules of all teams, but particularly families: is great teamwork is built playing one-on-one. Meaning your team is only as strong as the one-to-one relationships that build it up. And I learned that working for about 12 years with the Army, and learning that those guys, they're not, who are they fighting for? The guy next to them. And the one-on-one stuff strengthens. So take this time to, yes, find your own alone time, but encourage one-on-one time. So if two siblings are playing a game, they don't have to include the other sibling. If you're going on a walk, take one of the kids with you. But it's also great in your team, because Zoom is so easy to do. Encourage your teammates, instead of having these meetings. That's one thing I helped a leader stop, is they were having these whole team check-ins. How's everybody doing every day? And that whole team environment is just not going to encourage real revelations to anybody. So make it one-on-one, and that's really good, because you're gonna come out stronger because you've built these one-on-one conversations.
And taking that one step even deeper, I think that's so important. The one-to-one, that's the success of the teams. It's those individual relationships that are going on. But to where we started this, you got to start with that relationship right here with yourself as well, and being intentional about taking that pause, taking that time. For me personally, I find, and I know Amber's really huge on this, just time away in nature. Right now, nature just seems to be stepping into my backyard. And that seems to be pretty far as to like how we're going through. But I give you an example of this. We went on a nature hunt in our backyard, just looking at different things that the kids could spot, what's something that's cool. And I was playing along with them. And it was just that one-to-one time that Hal was talking about there. It was so critical. My son was really involved in this and really interested. So we went looking at things. We ended up finding 2 blue jay nests that had been there for God knows how long, that we were just too busy to even notice. So we've been just tracking them every day, seeing what's going on. And both the kids have learned from that. But it's been getting curious and asking, what am I missing that's just right in front of me? Whether it's in my grass or just looking up at a tree. And it's created that individual connection with my son. My daughter and I, we both do martial arts, and we've been still maintaining a schedule. I've been protecting that time on the calendar as if we were going to class, and we've been leading class together. She's been leading. Sometimes my son joins in, and then she's leading it. So it's helping to hone her talents as a leader. But we treat it like it's on the time, and it's on their school schedule for their day with different things that are going through. And that's been helpful.
I'll tell you one of the most helpful things I've done personally last night. So I belong to an improv group, and we're just kind of starting the last part of this last year. And so we wanted to continue our Monday nights. So we actually did virtual improv last night. We had no idea if it was going to go well at all, and it was a blast. We loved it. We just took turns doing, okay, you two are doing a scene now, and the other person was helping to orchestrate it. And that was a lot of fun. And the one thing the great fear I have is that Zoom crashes.
Yeah. So you're an improv group that improvised how to improv.
Exactly.
That is awesome.
Well, I will say I recorded a podcast interview this was last week, but it was like Monday or Tuesday, and it took 3 days for it to process. And I thought it was gone forever, because for those of us that use Zoom all the time, that's not normal.
Right.
But it finally processed. But yes, I agree. That is the fear. So you guys were saying earlier, because we're talking a little bit about self-care, but we were talking about how the days seem so long. I have even found that, even because I'm doubling down on my meditation, I'm journaling more, I'm trying to have more dance breaks, I'm trying to do things to help manage my energy. And yet I still find I'm not sleeping as well. And I am losing energy throughout the day. And I think it's part of this concept of it just, right? It feels like it takes forever. For yourself, or those that you were talking to, your clients, leaders, what are you recommending in terms of being able to manage that energy? Because I think this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
And really just kind of calibrating to that.
Darren, I'm interested to what you've discovered.
So I'll say this. I think on the heels of the Zoom conversation we're having, we're actually spending far more time in Screenland. We have been pretty addicted screen-wise as it is, as a culture, as a society, not only here in the United States, but just globally, but we're getting more of that. So that creates more of an energy deficit. That creates more of a strain on our minds that it's starting to wear on us from a decision-making standpoint. You got two screens open, something pings somewhere, it's triggering all of these different pathways in our mind. So the rate at which we need to take the pauses is heightened. So what I've been doing for myself personally, and I've been encouraging, number one, still staying crazy hydrated, going through that. And when I'm on call, sometimes if we're on Zoom, or great, we can be face to face. There's other times I'm saying, let's just get on a call just so I can walk around. I'll go outside, take the call, and be outside, just so I can get some fresh air, going through, taking a little bit of sun, just be out in the yard talking. I think that is really, really important because we're in Screenlandia, even more so than before. It actually feels right now, everything you're talking about, Heather, it feels like it's actually more difficult to just go outside the front door or go into my backyard if I'm not intentional about it.
Right.
And I think that's really, really important right now. We got to remember the world is charged by the sun, right? Like without the sun, we don't get to eat. It's given us food. It's given us all these sorts of things. We need some of that as well. We need that fresh air, and being in the box behind the computer screen, there's a little bit of an accelerated rate. So that, lots of water starting off the morning right out of the gate without looking at screens. I don't look at screens for the first hour of the day because I know I'm going to have plenty of time looking at them, and hydrating like crazy right out of the gate. And then intentionally pausing every hour or so, at least stepping out, walking around, and trying to get those injections. It's been a tough balance, but been trying to work through that so I'm not fueled on coffee.
Well, I have to say, I'm jealous of your stories of the sun.
Sunshine, right.
Right. I apologize.
There is no sun in Nashville, and it is basically like it has rained all day. And so I'm literally watching like creeks that are not creeks forming in the yard. So I am jealous. Hal, I don't know what it's like in Atlanta, but
we had incredible weather this past weekend, 73 degrees and sunny.
Nice.
And we live right by Piedmont Park, which is this huge, enormous like Central Park. And it was awesome to go outside. It was great, but it was a little dismaying seeing how many people were going on with business as usual and playing sports and fist bumping. And eventually I couldn't watch it anymore. I'd go inside. And so the rain has actually sent everybody away. But I walked in the rain yesterday. I just had to, because everything Darren's talking about is just getting outside. What I'm discovering, and I've been thinking about this and writing about this for a while, but this thing is not a fountain. It is a drain. And occasionally it will spit out water like a fountain. And we get sucked in thinking, oh, this is what this thing does. And no, it does not. And that energy drain that we experience, the more and more screens, it is real. It is palpable. It is literally sucking us away from vitality. And we have to, it's a necessary part, and it's really great now for us to connect. But I just feel more tired after an hour on Zoom than I do on an hour on a phone call, even when I'm walking around and talking. And remembering that is difficult. I love how you mentioned the pause, because that's my entire kind of intellectual property is all about the pause. So I've had a blog called The Daily Pause for 15 years. And now I've started, Amber's saying, hey, do live streaming as much as possible. So one of the things I did, since I'm a speaker and I do a lot of work with the DoD, and they have canceled everything, kind of like you were talking about, Darren, with government. And I was just talking with another speaker today. It's just a terrible time to be a speaker. And we were comparing notes. I've lost $100,000 in canceled gigs, and it's just gone. And so what am I doing? And I started a daily webcast show called The Leader's Pause. And that's been a lot of fun, getting great feedback on that. But I need to take a pause from that pause and reminding myself. You mentioned sleep, Heather, that, we've been learning more and more over the last decade about how precious sleep is. I just talked to a guy today, leader, who he was telling me about his daughter, and she took a gap year after senior year of high school because she was suffering from so much anxiety, which is not uncommon at all. It's a really difficult time to be a teenager. But what they found out was she had sleep apnea. And 3 days with a CPAP machine, and she's a completely different person because oxygen to the brain matters, and we're not getting REM. And so screen time is certainly tied to that. Finding how, you talked about not looking at a screen for an hour. There needs to be not looking at a screen for an hour before trying to go to sleep.
Yeah.
I would echo that. And I also think even in that hour gap before going to bed, what we consume on the screen can be huge because it's still there. It's starting to tune out. Like we've been very, very intentional, my wife and I, how and when we're even consuming the media updates of what's going on, the push and pull, because you'll just get caught up in the vortex. And that doesn't calm the mind. And even doing like some nighttime breathing or something like that can just, even if it's before I go to bed, one of the things that I do, it takes like maybe 20 seconds. I'll take 3 or 4 deep breaths just quietly right before I go through. And the last one, just take a really deep breath, just hold it for like 5-10 seconds.
Yeah.
But just to get a little bit of an oxygen flood into my mind and to kind of shut some of that down. And it was raining in California. It does rain in California. We're
Really?
due to get some rain here in just a moment today. But to Hal's point, I've still been getting outside, even if it's under the porch or standing under an umbrella, just being out there and away from the box and the bubble. Some of that's been my own time. Some of that's been time with the kids and the family and finding things you love. I love what you said, Hal, about like the improv, like you did it, and that gives you boosts of energy. We're in a state right now, we're going to be doing things that either energize us or exhaust us. It's going to be one or the other. And we might be doing things like Zoom that energize us and exhaust us because we're doing things that we love, but in a very, very different way. So we have to be really intentional about making sure we're finding the hits of things that energize us. That's why martial arts has stayed alive for my family and I. I'm a musician as well. I play bass. I've been making sure every single day I spend time on that bass at night. That's one of the last things that I do. Just get behind that. It takes my mind to a good place. Is there more stuff that's going on? Is there craziness? Yep. And guess what? It's still going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
that is for sure.
What excites you guys? What are you working on? What are you creating? What excites you about when we get to the other side, right? When we move through this?
Sure.
What's
I've been working on a new book proposal for a while. My agent's been expecting it, and now I don't have an excuse. Right? I got more time, and so working on that has been helpful. So I've been writing more and creating a new show, and I'm going to start a interview series with Amber's help. She's been coaching me, called Leading from a Distance. So how we do this differently, and love to interview each of you guys. It'd be fun. So so those are some of the things I'm working on.
Fantastic. Well, I'd love to be interviewed by you, but I'd actually love to interview you as well, because some of the stuff that I'll be working on within my TED Talk and some of the stuff that I'm in the season as well of working on a book proposal in some of those different areas, heavy in the space of working on the TEDx talk, the outline. Have a lot of movement in that direction. I'm pretty far along, but I plan to be further by this point. The past week and a half kind of shifted that. So it's been also the other piece that I'm working on is within our business is we're pretty nimble to being able to adapt to the virtual needs of clients and different things, but it's really forced us to look at a deeper level as to what we can do right now and some of the micro pivots that we can make. Much of making a lot of our stuff more virtual was already on the books for Q3 and Q4, and we were already doing it on a micro level. So it's just accelerated the pace in which we're doing that. And that's been beneficial. So that excites me. I playing bass, getting some time behind music, being
Nice.
intentional about listening to that. That always excites me. It's been exciting me for decades. And you put a bass in my hand and get to talk about music. I can always get excited about that. And having conversations still with people, picking up the phone sometimes and talking to people as opposed to just texting. That's been exciting because we kind of will fall away from that because you could call or you could go outside, you could meet somebody, but now that's not so easy to do. So that intentionality has been a source of energy for me.
And that reminds me of something that we started a couple of weeks ago. I have this relationship with my college roommates, and there were 12 of us back, and we graduated in '94, University of Texas. And we get together once a year for this long weekend. We've been doing that for 20 years. Well, now we're getting together every Sunday night for a Zoom call. And it is, this amazing, profound connection of people who can easily shift into the most profane adolescent humor with one another, like we always do. And it's been a godsend. It's been fantastic because we don't have friendships. We can't. And I've met with a lot of men, and I'm going to start a men's group online because now they're like, we don't have anything to talk about. There's no sports. Right? Our businesses are all weird. We're all around our families all the time. What do we do without sports? Which is just really bizarre. I did hear this one story. Jared Leto, the actor, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but he was on a 12-day silence retreat out in Joshua Tree in California while all of this was beginning to escalate. And so he came out of that with having no contact with the outside world. He's like,
wow,
sports is canceled? What the hell is going on? Just imagine how crazy that must have been.
Oh, that must have been nuts. And to that point, how it makes you laugh, right? It makes you smile. And we got to remember right now, with whatever our businesses are going through our lives, the stress that's on us, trying to maintain on a physiological level, biological level. I'm no doctor or anything, but trying to secure our immune system, strengthen it.
Yeah,
that's a big part of it. And laughing kind of helps with that, right? Laughing helps. We feel good. It creates some bursts of energy. So what are things that we can do to laugh and to make others laugh? And asking ourselves that's one of the questions I start with every day. How can I make somebody smile that I talk to today, or create laughter in somebody that I'm going to cross paths with, and on Zoom or on a phone call or something like that. So it's part of the intentional seeds in the shifting sands of long-term planning right now, being a week out. I'm planning till Friday. That's like planning the next 20 years of your life.
Exactly.
Like right now. So what's the ways that we can inject laughter and create some of that? Because that just gets us to lean in, connect a little bit more, and feel together.
And I've been sick of the term social distancing. We're physically distancing, but socially we can be connecting.
Very much so.
In that way, for sure.
I'm watching our time, and I'm thinking, unless you guys have other things you'd like to discuss, I would love to hear how from you for the leaders who are listening, and quite frankly, I think, or watching, I think most people are. I would love if you have like some advice that you really think everyone needs to hear, that they should know. And then Darren, I was thinking with you, because you do so much with strengths, I'm a huge fan of the Gallup Strengths Finder, but for those even who haven't taken that, if there is any advice or wisdom that you want to share around that related to how people can really, dig into their strengths at this time so that, they can really thrive now and afterwards. Unless there's something else you guys have on your mind you want to discuss. I know personally, I would love to hear both of those things from you guys, because I feel like that's your specialty and expertise.
Well, now you got me all. I'm ready to hear what Darren's got to say. So,
so I guess I get to lead.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have a couple of points we can make. So whether people have taken the Strengths Finder or the Strengths Assessment or not, I think now is a great time to take inventory of ourselves. An exercise that we have at 34 Strong that we've developed. It's called Grind Greatness Genius. And this applies in your business and it applies in your life. And it's really thinking about what are the things that you do that are in your grind zone, your greatness zone, and your genius zone. And when I say grind zone, these are the things that you do and you're just like, just thinking about them makes your stomach turn, right? You get exhausted thinking about doing these things. And this could be tasks that you have to tackle on the home front or at work or in your business, or it could be going out there and saying good morning to your employees when you're walking in, making the connection. What seems to flow naturally to you? If you're like, oh, geez, I have to go in, I have to say good morning to everybody, that feels like a grind. Maybe the relationship side is not as strong for you. That's okay, but take a chance to own that. Greatness are the areas where you feel strong. You do these things pretty well. They come pretty naturally to you. You get some level of enjoyment doing them. And others might even tell you, oh, you know, Hal, I'm going to come to you for these areas because you really get me to pause, and I really appreciate that. That can be an area that we could be. Now, the genius zone, these are the areas you don't even try. Okay, these are often the areas where now we can look deep in the mirror and we can say, what are the things that I actually often tell myself that's no big deal? Those are the things that I just do for free, right? How many small business owners get to the point of like, well, that's easy, I'll just do that. But that's the hugest piece of value that they actually have to give. Many times for us as leaders, that genius zone, that elusive genius zone is the thing that we look in the mirror and we actually minimize and devalue because it happens so easily for us. That's a sign of your true strengths. That's a sign of where your genius is. If we can take inventory of these things, we can then ask ourselves, how much time are we spending in each of these respective zones? And if you're finding that you're spending 80-90% of your time in your grind zone, maybe there's an opportunity for you to look at on your team, who else can you partner with? And oftentimes, if you're doing that individually and you get your team members doing that, you'll reveal what different people's greatness and genius zone might be, and they might complement really nicely with your grind zone. We actually have a download of that exercise on our website people can go to, but even if not, it's just a great way to kind of framework for kind of thinking through this. The final piece that I would give to leaders is a lot of times in regular circumstances, we struggle to set clear expectations for our team members, right? It feels like we're playing a game of telephone. I whisper something to Hal, he whispers it to Heather, it goes on down the road. And we got 10 different ways of how we're supposed to do things. Now's the time, to Hal's point, to have those one-to-one conversations, because that strengthens the team. But really identify, how is it that each of your team members likes to learn? How is it that they like to be recognized? They might all say, oh, I just like a small thank you. What is a real meaningful small thank you mean to each of those people? Because when you identify those little nuggets, you can really customize and individualize your approach to each team member so that the strength of the team is shored up and it becomes a fascinating conversation and dialogue piece as well.
I love that. I want to download the thing on the website. I love the grind and greatness and Jesus and genius. That's fantastic. And I mean, you were coaching me right there. That was beautiful, man. It was awesome. I want more coaching from you. That was really, really good. So
thank you, Hal.
Thank you. Yeah, that was awesome. All right, I'll leave with one. You know what? Maybe two, but I'll start with one. And this is, we got, your tone is your message more than your words. When you're communicating, especially in times of uncertainty, your tone communicates so much more than even the words that you're saying. And trying to match that tone to the message you're trying to communicate. And you got to think about, what emotion am I wanting to provoke? Because emotions are what drive behavior far more than our thoughts, is because emotions is what actually produces neurochemicals in our midbrain, and that's what actually drives the boat. So what am I doing to help calm, even when you're saying 3 magic words? And these are words that leaders hate to say, but starting from the very first thing you said, Darren, about this uncertainty, 3 magic words are, I don't know. Embrace it. Say it. And how your tone comes across when you say it. When somebody asks you a question, or, well, do we know we're going to have a job in 30 days? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm going to work tirelessly to make sure that the whole thing ship floats, whatever language you want to do. But saying, no, I'm not sure about that. That's a great question. That doesn't diminish your authority in their minds. It actually can calm. Talking to your kids even this way, because you don't know. So the worst thing would be to pretend that you do when they can handle it. One of the stories I told in my first book was when my wife got cancer the first time. out of nowhere. She got lymphoma, and we were facing a year of chemo and radiation, and we got the definitive diagnosis. And our kids were young, like 10 and 8. And I remember we came home, and there were grandparents who had come in town, and they were with the kids. And then we came in, and they wanted to know the diagnosis, and we just kind of did a Heisman pose to the parents and said, "We'll talk to you in a minute." We went in a room just with our 2 kids, and we sat them down, and we just told them, because bad news does not get better with age. So spit it out and say, "Hey, I know you guys have been wondering. We know mom has cancer. She's very sick. She's going to get sicker. She's going to lose her hair. We absolutely have every confidence that she's going to make it. You guys have any questions?" It just, you can do that with your team when you lay it out, because that, your ability to confidently communicate stuff you don't actually know, gives them a sense of reassurance. And that usually seems backwards to people. But when you are calm and present, you become a calming presence. And that's so much of what your people need. Whether your people means your spouse or your elderly parents or your team members or even your boss.
When you are calm and present, you become a calming presence. Wow, Hal. Thanks for returning that favor on some coaching and some wisdom for me.
That's good,
That was
right?
profound stuff, man. And
Awesome.
oh, wow, that was huge.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It has been such an honor for me to interview both of you. For those of you watching, what you can do to help is we are asking that you share these interviews. You can follow the Facebook page while they are still going on, and continue to. Amber's just got great advice always. But NG Enterprises, which is No Guts, No Glory. And we are also asking, if you have the funds to donate to a COVID relief organization, and if not, just find ways to show up and serve, to really give back to the community. I know that that's why I'm here, and Darren's here, and Hal's here. And so I think that that is one thing that we can all continue to do, is to show up and be of service. So we appreciate you spending time with us this afternoon. And Hal and Darren, it has been my honor and my pleasure. So thank you so much.
Great job, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. Thank you so much, Hal. What a pleasure.
Thanks, Darren.